Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and our show today is the art of creating mental health wealth. What an important topic, especially in what's going on in the world today. People are struggling in so many ways, and this show is our way of providing education, hope, and inspiration. Today, we're going to be talking about sustainable business and regenerative seafood. What exciting topics. Joining me is the star of our show. It's JENETTA Barry and the Epiphany Process. JENETTA is a huge part of our platform here. She is constantly open to growth and getting involved and bringing new people to the platform all the time, in addition to the work that she's doing to help people who are struggling maybe with thoughts of suicide, self-harming. Let's welcome JENETTA to the program. Come on out, JENETTA. Hello, welcome.
Dr. JACALYN, hello viewers and listeners. Wonderful to be back again.
It's fantastic to have you here. And JENETTA, I say this quite often, but I really mean it. It's amazing to me how you're there in Africa and I'm here in the United States, and we're having a conversation just like we're sitting across the table with one another.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is how, because of technology, one becomes close friends without having to actually virtually meet. I've got clients of 5-10 years I've never met, and they're my besties. It's the most extraordinary way of living these days, and really heart-opening as well. Just love it.
Absolutely. I agree with you. And, you know, one of our team members is coming from the United Kingdom over to Florida, believe it or not, Ian Palm Turner. And I'm looking forward to meeting him, thinking, oh my gosh, I'm actually going to meet someone on our team in person. What should I do? I hope I'm up for this.
It's like a shock.
It is. It's like, oh my gosh, we're going to be in the flesh. It's like amazing. So, but you know, when we think about forming relationships, there are people out there who are struggling to connect with someone. And I know that in a lot of ways, that's what you're able to help people do, to get in touch with who they are, what they're feeling, and then to be able to open up and then connect with others. Can you tell us a little bit more? And then our guest is backstage. We'll welcome her.
Yes, yes, certainly I can, because it's something very close to my heart. Having lost a daughter to suicide after she couldn't connect with others, and quite frankly, I believe that all of us at some time or another find a difficulty in connecting and reaching out without going within, because that internal conversation within us is what pulls us back. And there's kind of like an internal war that most of us go through at some time in our lives. So what I do is I had to go on a journey of self-discovery, because I really lost myself after I lost Jenny. And she was 16 when she left this planet. And that self-discovery was not easy. And I wish I'd had a JENETTA Barry to help me through it. So I assist people to start new internal conversations that are often conflictual, where our thoughts are thinking one thing and our feelings are thinking quite the opposite. And when you start new conversations where our thoughts and feelings become complementary opposites. So as much as they're opposing, it's not saying, oh, they mustn't oppose each other. There's service in that. But at the same time, we get them to start speaking. And so they're opposing and pulling together at the same time. And there's a balance and manageability that comes in that internal conversation. And I'm living proof of that, because I nearly ended my life 3 times after Jenny died. If I hadn't had these skills and tools to begin those new internal conversations, I don't know where we'd be today. But I'm certainly here, and I've helped people through terrorist attacks, self-harming, not getting out of bed, and all those things. So it's really very passionate and close to my heart, this program. And today, we've very specially invited somebody that I work very closely with, or quite closely in collaboration, I should say, not with my work, but we collaborate very closely. And she's part of my metaverse global village, where I have a merchant house on the metaverse. So anybody can visit it and see my virtual office. It's beautiful. And this person I'm going to introduce has her own as well in that global square on the metaverse. And what I love about this lady is her passion. She is so passionate about what she talks about and posts. She's brought in a lot of influential people into her life with the work she does. And her name is Lourdes Gant. And Lourdes talks very passionately about aquaculture, sustainable aquaculture, and that farming. And a lot of people go, oh, farming has such a bad reputation. Well, I can't wait to bring out Lourdes just now to explain more, because I have seen in my work that the niggling part behind most people's stress and feeling overwhelmed in the world at the moment is that bigger, large picture of doom and gloom, that we're destroying the planet, that there aren't sustainable solutions, that it's always niggling there, that how can we do anything without having an effect on the planet? And it's not always true. Some of it is true because some people and companies really don't care. But there are a lot of people out there looking for sustainable solutions and getting them. And that's why, without much ado, I would like to introduce you to Lourdes Gant. Lourdes, welcome today.
Hi, Lourdes, welcome.
You're on mute.
It will be helpful if I'm not on mute.
Lourdes, welcome. Thanks for joining us. And I just want to clarify that we're talking about aquaculture today, not agriculture, in case people didn't hear the difference. Can you share with us a little bit about aquaculture? It's so exciting. What is it?
So it's a new sunrise industry that's been in the industry for quite some time, but it just didn't gain any traction. So it's ocean farming. So for those of you who knows, the planet is going to be 9 billion in population by 2050. We're at 8 billion now, and we need new food production processes to feed the population. And so we started mining the seas through fishing, and that's just not sustainable. So my husband and business partner started in the business as a commercial diver fisherman and was seeing the devastating impact that the fishermen were doing to the ocean's ecology. So decided to farm the species that he was harvesting. It was a shellfish called geoduck or king clam. Main market is China. And so this started in 1988. So ever since then, most of the challenges we've been seeing is that there are now new species, even new ways of producing food, cell-based, plant-based, you heard them all. So it's just different kinds of farming.
Thanks so much for sharing that. It's really fascinating. Congratulations to you and your husband for undertaking this project and helping all of us around the world, because our planet seems to be going through so much and we're contributing to the demise. So I'm super excited to hear about people who are contributing to the extension of our planet.
It's been a long journey, and I bet a lot of people who has been successful has this 10,000 hours that we say that in order to be an expert or a master at anything, they work hard, they persisted, very resilient, which is along the topic that you guys were talking today about mental health and stress. Because in this industry, there's a lot of talk about having eco anxiety. And this is a term that I learned 3 years ago, that a lot of people are being stressed out because of what's happening to our planet, and rightfully so. But at the same time, when I'm advocating with my mentees about eco anxiety, we have to start from the inside out. So I call it the three pillars of sustainability from the inside out, which are leadership, partnership, and stewardship. And when I say these three pillars, it really starts a step by step process. And the reason being is I believe that you probably also heard the word greenwashing, wherein the word sustainability has been used as a cliche now. And not a lot of people are really being true in terms of how they need to be sustainable. And so when I talk about the first pillar of leadership, it's the CEOs, the C suite in your organization needs to have the leadership ability defined as doing the right thing, even though no one's watching. So if we have that strong foundation for pillar number one, that everybody will do the right thing, even though no one's taking a score, then we're way ahead. And then the next pillar is sustainable partnerships, meaning no man live in an island. In this day and age, if you don't have a collaborator, in which I'm very grateful that Jenny invited me over, now I get to meet you, Dr. JACALYN. Collaboration is key. So call it CC, competitive collaboration. And in this day and age, if you're not having a collaborator, that can be a demise for your business or for your career for that matter. As you know, your network is your network is your net worth, as the adage goes. And then obviously the third pillar in that sustainability from the inside out is stewardship. So once we have a strong foundation of somebody doing the right thing, even though no one's watching, having a competitive collaboration, then it becomes easier to have the stewardship component in the sustainability matrix.
Fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I love that. I never heard that term, eco stress,
Eco anxiety.
eco anxiety. Jeanette, have you heard this before?
Only through this special lady, but not before. But it makes so much sense, because global warming and overpopulation and um, pressure on farming and farming methods, and even people's eating more healthily these days is putting a huge amount of pressure on land and so on. People think that that's so healthy, but they don't realize the knock-on effects of having to grow more of whatever it is that's more healthy without the infrastructure. So that eco anxiety is, I believe, quietly behind every person's thought process. It's there niggling at the back of our heads, that it seems to be like a never-ending challenge and problem. That's what inspired me so much about you, Lourdes, is that you're coming with all these wonderful solutions and applications. And I kind of get on a personal level for you. Am I right in saying that going into the aquaculture and all that you're doing, you feel as though you've almost gone into your life purpose now doing this? Am I correct?
Well, it's fascinating that you mentioned that. I think what got me into it, other than marrying into it, was because growing up in a third world country from the Philippines before I immigrated to Canada, it's always been about working hard. And that has been, I guess, stamped into our DNA. And the only golden ticket to have a better life is through education. So my United Nations Sustainable Development Goal actually is no poverty. And the golden ticket that gave me that in terms of my own personal experiences because of education. So studied hard, really did well in school, and that was how got me into not being able to actually even being interviewed to get my Canadian visa as a permanent resident when I moved here to Canada 19 years ago. But on another note, my mom, actually growing up from the Philippines, has a mental illness. So early on, I detected she has schizophrenia. And so this has been a hard experience for me growing up as a child in a third world country where we're poverty stricken. And on top of that, my mom was not being able to take care of us because of that. And so I believe that all these experiences I had, both personally and professionally, got me to where I am today.
I so thank you for sharing that with us, that personal comment about your mom. It's truly amazing. That's what we're all about here today. And I love what you said about collaboration, because it is about reaching across the aisle, so to speak, reaching across the oceans and helping each other so that this planet is here long after we leave it. And I'm wondering, on that note, we've done several shows about ocean pollution and about all of the nets that have been lost and are broken off and left into the ocean. How is this impacting aquaculture?
Big time, really big time. And it's also like what JENETTA mentioned, there's also a lot of connotation about aquaculture because it started with the finfish as a species. And of course, there are bad and good aquaculturists. And once they hear about aquaculture, automatically the connotation is the finfish, salmon, in which there were bad practices that happened. And so most of the aquaculturists were now tainted with the same brush, even though sometimes they have good practices, maybe even better off than any other industry that we've known. But to make the long story short, some of them uses actually nets that harm the ocean. In fact, they're also good nets. In Vancouver, where I live here in Canada, there's actually some nets made out of shrimp shells. So this has been addressed in some of the new technologies that has been going on in the industry as well. So make sure that when you see something online, you don't just research one industry. There's like, I guess, like a population, there's a lot of categories in that same pond, pun intended. So take a look if the materials are actually biodegradable, or it actually helps the environment, or if it's a different species, are the practices the same. One case, for example, in our industry, the geoduck aquaculture industry in Canada is being done subtidally, meaning 20 to 60 feet under the water, while in the United States it's being done intertidally, which where they own their own beachfront. So two different practices, two different materials. Like what I mentioned, just like population, there will be bad eggs, there will be good eggs.
Can you explain to us what the difference is between what Canada's doing, what the United States is doing? I think that would be very interesting.
So in our own species, the geoduck, which is I mentioned, the king clam, so they plant their animals in front of their beach. They own their own beach. So miles and miles of beachfront, which is called intertidal. So very different from the way that we do here in Canada. In Canada, some people own intertidal, but mostly they're not good substrate, which is not good for growing the animal. So the pristine waters of Canada for this kind of aquaculture is done subtidally, wherein we lease part of the ocean from the government. We were given a 25-year lease, and then it's renewable. And once you take care of that farm, it's most of the time, 99%, it's going to be renewed because you're taking care of the ocean. The aquaculture practices actually makes you reseed the population of the stocks that you're cultivating. And so we use divers, we plant the seed 20 to 60 feet under the water, and then the animals that we're cultivating doesn't need to get to be fed. So there were some issues about feeds as well. Our animals actually feed themselves, so they grow there and we just wait. The challenging part is it takes 10 years to grow. The animal that we raise, the market likes it at 1.8 pounds.
Fascinating. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that.
And the other
Yeah.
difference too is in the States, actually, they raise the same clam for 5 to 6 years.
So you're saying it's faster or slower doing it under the ocean?
Say that again.
You're saying 5 to 6 years in the States. Does that mean it's faster or slower
It's
to
faster.
cultivate? It's
faster.
faster.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I'm drawing this picture in my mind that we're out to sea. How far deep do you go? And you're using natural products to contain these animals that you're growing? Are they long cages, or how do you make those products to cultivate under the sea?
So right now we're actually in transition because of all these things that are happening with ESG. So originally we have protection from the predators that we're using, that over time technology has allowed us to actually change so that it's more environmentally friendly. I can't disclose much in terms of the technology that we're using, but just to give you a little bit of an idea, most of the maintenance that we're doing that are done by the divers under the water, and these divers are very expensive. So the new technology that we're going to implement for this year actually will not require much diver maintenance anymore. So that was the other thing that the new technology brought on, is it's not just more environmentally friendly, but it's more cost effective as well. So just to give you a little bit of a process, so we take the parent animals we call broodstock from the wild. We select the best animals, and then we bring them to our hatchery to spawn. And once they spawn at a certain size, say 3 to 5 millimeters of seed, we bring them back to the ocean. We plant them back, and then we just wait until it reaches market size. We go every month so that we know that they're still there. Predators didn't eat them or whatever. If there's a temperature or climate that so extreme that they are taken care of properly. And then, of course, this is where climate change comes in. And then salinity of the water, the substrate or the sand that they're growing into. So all kinds of variables that we take into account in terms of taking care of the animals.
So interesting. It's a topic I've never really discussed at this level before. I'm wondering, so how do you keep, I'm going to use air quotes, predators who might be coming in from scooping up what it is that you're creating?
So the main, I guess, factor to protect the animals is put them what we call on refuge depth, which is the size that they can burrow. So these animals burrow under the sand so that they can protect themselves. So if they're bigger, then lesser predators may come in. So in order to protect themselves, they burrow themselves under the sand. And we found that once they leave our hatchery, if they dig into the sand while they're still in the hatchery between 10 to 30 minutes, that means they're strong enough to burrow themselves once they go into the farm. And so what we ended up happening is we actually were listing all of the predators. So Dungeness crab, moon snails, starfish, and we have underwater camera. And we were also looking into doing like, what's the word, where you fast the camera so we can monitor it, let's say for 18 hours and see what kind of animals go there under the water. So that's kind of what we're doing in order to monitor them, to be able to know, okay, this, if, for example, a crab goes there, and at one point we were thinking of actually creating an octopus den, because for some reason, some of the predators are afraid of the octopus. So we just make it so that the natural ecology is still there while protecting the animals themselves.
Wow. Amazing.
I get a feeling from what you're saying, it's rather like somebody who really loves their garden, and we're looking at an ocean garden. And I'm now singing the Beatles, an octopus's garden in the shade. I could imagine, and I can see now why, because I'm getting passionate now, why it must be so rewarding going in and visiting all that you're growing there and going, oh, this is doing well and that's doing well, that didn't, and readjusting and realigning. Is this part of what you would say is your mental health and inspiration?
That's a really good point, and especially now I have the visual of an ocean garden as well. And it's very true what you said, JENETTA. So our company mandate is to create the most environmentally beneficial food production operation on land or sea anywhere in the world. This has been the number one mandate that we have ever since we started this company 30 years ago, and the number one value across the board with all the C-suite, the owners, shareholders, the employees, is having a caretaker mentality. So remember, I mentioned a while ago about the three pillars of sustainability, and caretaking is part of all that. If somebody, caretaking can be, in a very simplistic example, can be if you're the owner of a company and you see there's a garbage on the ground, leadership says, as I defined earlier, you have to pick it up even though no one tells you, or even though no one is going to give you a pat on the back or an applause because you did that. So a caretaker mentality in this industry is very important in the sustainability stage of the process. And so when you were talking about taking care of the garden, it's very much so. So it's like our babies, our little babies are the little clams that if we take care of them, even to the extent of, when we transfer them from our hatchery to the ocean, how much transport trauma, we were talking about mental health here at the very core of the animals, because they are living beings. How much trauma are they actually experiencing when we transfer them from one location to the other? We are trying to measure that now as well as part of our data collection.
Wow.
I have so many questions. Let me just say. So, what I'm wondering from a personal level, have you always been a fan of the ocean? Have you always been a swimmer or a diver, or snorkeler, and you love to see what's there, what's growing?
That's a really great question, JACALYN. Growing up in the Philippines, I don't really have much connection with the ocean. In fact, I remember a time in my childhood, maybe I was 5 this time, wherein my mom and dad actually brought us to the beach, and I loved it. My dad said that I stayed there all by myself. I'm a very independent child, so I played there by my whole self the whole time we were there. And it didn't really connect with me until only later on when I started joining this business 15 years ago. And fascinatingly enough, I find that, I guess, growing up being responsible at an early age, in fact, a personal story that I shared in my memoir was growing up, I felt like my childhood was taken from me early on because I always have to take care, and talking about caretaking value as well, meaning I have to be responsible at an early age because we were poverty stricken. So I have to always think about the future. And that has a benefit and a disadvantage at the same time. Meaning I got really good at planning, but at the same time, it kind of robbed me of having to be present. And that was an inner journey for me growing up in terms of, okay, now that I'm in North America, I mean, I'm better off than I was before. Sometimes it's still a struggle to be present and just enjoy because I'm always thinking of ahead or future or planning. And so now that I have a 13-year-old and a teenager, it's a challenge still, and it's an ongoing process, a lifelong learning.
I love that smile on your face.
Thank you.
So we have a number of comments, by the way, from our friends in Uganda, and they're desperate to get in touch with you. We asked for a collaboration with you. We want to collaborate with you. So we have your contact information up, and we're going to continue the show. But what about an email address? Is there something you can share? Maybe put in the private chat and we can give it out.
Yeah, you can email our team at ManateeHoldings.com. So I'm just going to type that in. So that's TEAM at ManateeHoldings.com. And please do contact me if there's a lot of interest now globally in terms of this industry, and it's very new. So if you want to learn more about it, let's chat what we can do.
You know, Lourdes, actually, it took about timing with Push Foundation Uganda coming in. Uganda is a landlocked country, but there is one enormous lake that we all share in East Africa, and that's Lake Victoria. So Uganda owns part of Lake Victoria, Kenya owns part of Lake Victoria, and so does Tanzania. So would this whole practice be transferable into freshwater, was my first question. And is it something that we could empower the people who are in poverty surrounding a lake like that and give them these farming practices? Is that something that you have perhaps in your sights for the future?
That's a great question. In alignment with collaboration, one of our strategic plans in the next 5 years is to have presence globally. And so part of that process is to rebrand not just as a shellfish, but as a food company. But in terms of answering your question with the lake in Uganda, we have to find out if I guess the variables I mentioned a while ago, salinity, temperature, the seasons of the year, if it's going to be helpful for the animals. For example, we can't raise the animal that we're raising in Australia, and it's not because of the conditions of the water. It's because there are sharks there. And so our divers obviously can't work with that condition. So we haven't tried that in Australia yet. So we have to find out what's, I guess, the variables that we have to take into account in terms of the location and the area that we're putting our animals in. But at the same time, not to lose hope, because there are a lot of different animals that are gaining tractions now in terms of being cultured. For example, the darling of the aquaculture industry right now is the seaweed. If you're in the industry, you're probably going to see seaweed 3 times a day, every day in the last, I don't know, 2 years. It's just about seaweed, seaweed, seaweed. And obviously, cell based and plant based has gained traction for quite some time now in the last year or two, just because, as I mentioned, we have to feed the 9 billion people on the planet. But again, going back to your question, I wonder what is already existing in terms of what animals are being cultured in Uganda or in Lake Victoria, as you mentioned. I mentioned a while ago, I'm originally from the Philippines, and they are very big in tilapia, which we don't do
Yeah.
in Canada. So there are certain processes that we can transfer in the location that we may be moving into, but may not necessarily be the same animal.
Yeah, I love that because Lake Victoria is enormous. When you get in the middle of that lake, you don't see any land. It's like being on the ocean, and it's all fresh water, and it is. It's hugely. It's been feeding the masses with tilapia for a long time, but for how long? And there are those tiny little fishes. I can't remember their names now. That is staple diet round. They dry them out and cook with them round Lake Victoria. But to come in with what you have and be able to start actual practices there that are more healthy and more sustainable for the lake, the people, and the planet at large, how amazing that would be.
It would be amazing. And we were talking about mental health. I think part of the process too to take care of that is that you do something that makes you happy. And if you mentioned gardening a while ago and it just stuck with me. I'm like, if you love gardening, then do that all the time. If you love caretaking, I mean, if you don't have a child, you can get a pet. There's a lot of I guess strategies that you can do to take care of yourself at this time and age when it is very stressful to live at this day and age. So you need to be able to have the mindset, and one of my life coaches actually call it soul set, to be able to be your own mentor or get someone if you need someone. And that was one of the things that most of the time I actually advise my mentees, is that you got to take care of yourself first.
You know, it's so interesting to me because the ocean and water itself plays such an important role in people's mental health when you think about it. Because when you're feeling stressed out, you want to look at the ocean, you want to look at a lake, you want to be around water, and you want to be around nature. And yet, in the water, underneath the surface, there's so much going on. And for you to take this role when there's so much water, there's so much opportunity. You need how many lifetimes to get to all the water across the world? And you've taken this stake and put it in the ground, and I really applaud you for that. I think it's phenomenal.
Thank you. And if
Thank
you
you.
wanted to find out more, I actually have a podcast. So I'll put on the chat later today, or before I go. And you can listen in. I actually started this podcast in 2021, and lucky enough to be first in the aquaculture industry to be able to do it. So I had really trailblazers in the aquaculture industry being able to be a guest on the podcast. And we just love the information that they shared with us.
And we're going to share it with our audience as well. JENETTA, I noticed that you have something pulled up that you want to share screen. Can you tell us a little bit about what we're going to be seeing? Janetta, you're on mute.
Yeah, I've got dogs barking. So let's start from the top. Yeah, it's the website that Lourdes has included here for you to visit. But I just thought it shows all the farming practice that you're working with, and I thought it was nice to have an insight right now here on the program. So here we go. So is this in Canada, Lourdes?
That's correct. That's in Vancouver Island where our hatchery is. This is the whole hatchery.
Wow. And so from that hatchery, how far do the animals have to travel?
So we mentioned we bring the parent animals called broodstock from the wild, and then we bring this to this hatchery. And then in 6 months, once they reach a refuge depth size, as I mentioned, the farm is actually 3 hours away.
How far?
3 hours away.
3 hours.
How do you spell the parent animal? Boots?
A broodstock?
Boots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here, I just typed it in.
Thank you. And just to clarify, are we looking at the actual, this is your actual business, or is this the metaverse?
No,
version?
this is the actual hatchery.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, thank you for saying that. It sounded like we're so advanced. We're in the metaverse. I'm actually,
Yeah.
it's fascinating you mentioned that. I'm actually creating an aqua farm. I call Aquaverse in the metaverse, actually.
So,
Yes. And it was those graphics that inspired me when I looked at them the other day, Lourdes, and I saw what you were doing with the metaverse graphics. It was like, oh my word, we've got to get this out here. And I can't wait for you to be able to launch it with us at another time. Would that be possible in the foreseeable future?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So my launch target is 6 to 9 months from now.
Lourdes, I'm wondering, what is a typical day like for you? What do you do in and out of your daily routine at work?
I have this question being asked of me before. It's actually very, very routine. So I wake up, I'm an early riser. So when my son was younger, I actually go to bed between I go to bed between 7 to 8 at night, and then I'm up between 3 to 4 in the morning. That's when my quiet time is. So I go meditate, I do my yoga, I do my inspirational reading. That's a routine for me. And then my son wakes up ready for school. I drop him off, or my husband drops him off if I have an early call. And then I go, nowadays, we go swimming. So that's my normal exercise 3 times or 4 times a week if I can, if I'm not traveling. And then in between, I go do my walks. And then most of the time, I'm actually really either on Zoom or in real life face-to-face meeting. I love talking to people. I didn't realize early on my background actually as a career is as a certified public accountant, but my specialty is actually in audit. But I found out when I joined the company 15 years ago, I love public relations. I just love learning more about people. I love people. And so that has been the usual part of my role now is business development, public relations, investor relations. So people, people, people.
Well, it's easy to be warmed up to you. You're just passionate about what you're doing, and you can tell that you lead your life with your heart also. So I love that. And I'm so glad that you came here today. There's, as we know, Jeanette, there's other shows that you would be a perfect fit for. The Earth Show, the Pet Psychic Show, believe it or not, we talk about sustainability and coexistence. So important. So if you're interested in continuing to get your message out, we'd love to have you back.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. And we do have your information up, but for people who are not able to read the banner or they're listening on a platform, what is the best way to get in touch with you?
So our company website is either ManateeHoldings.com or sustainableaquaculture.ca. And my personal website where I do my mentoring, coaching, and consulting is lourdesgant.com. So you can find me on social media as well. I'm active on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok.
Fantastic. Well done. And thank you for being here today.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you both.
Thank you. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye for now. Wow, JENETTA, this is such an interesting topic. I'm really fascinated by it. Oh, you're on mute again.
It's one of those evenings where the dogs are not settled. So, yeah. So, yeah. From the moment I met Lourdes, I was just so inspired, and the more I deal with her and interact with her, the more passionate I get, and her passions become my passion, and I'm not even working with what she's doing. And I can feel that this could be a very therapeutic route for people to go in following. Just following gives a sense of peace, that there are solutions, that people are really open-heartedly making a difference to what feels or has felt like an unsolvable problem. And that's inspiring.
That is a great point, JENETTA, because so many times we'll hear people say, there's nothing I can do. This is too big of an issue. But it takes people walking out and saying, wait, let me take a step. We just heard that it takes 10 years, I think, from beginning to end to cultivate. But if you start now, 10 years later, you're already going to be ahead if you already started. But if we just keep standing there going, it's not my problem, it's not for me to do, it's for all of us. I even liked her comment about picking up trash. Pet Psychic Amina talks about that all the time. She's always picking up trash and things as she's walking through her neighborhood. Why not? Why not be part of the solution instead of just standing there and pointing fingers?
Actually, unfortunately, this hotel at the coast of Kenya has closed down. But whilst the owners were running it, they had grass baskets hanging from the trees at the beach edge with a sign saying, "As you go along, please pick up the litter that's being washed up." And a lot of those are things like rubber flip-flops, and there's a whole, in fact, we should all, oh wow, this is another topic we should interview on. They mold those flip-flops together in multicolors and do sculptures. They've made a whole dhow boat out of flip-flops in at the coast, and it actually went sailing about 2-3 years ago to raise awareness. So we should bring them in. But it's things like that where you're on holiday and you go, well, okay, so there's rubbish there, but I'm on holiday. But if you take a grass basket and fill it and it gets recycled, it's like, wow.
Yeah, you're part of the solution. Absolutely.
Yeah.
JENETTA, please let our audience know how you can help them, and also some of the other things that you're doing on this platform and then off this platform.
Oh, wow. How I can help people is, if you're feeling conflicted, that life feels like it's such a contradiction, that how you feel one day is completely opposite on another day, and it's overwhelming. And I have to share with you that most of us feel like that. It's not that you're alone. It's a very normal way to feel. But what is missing are the skills and tools to manage what you're feeling, so that you can turn them into a place where you are empowered by what's going on rather than disempowered. If you'd like to know how to do that, because I am truly living proof of that, then please do get hold of me. TheEpiphanyProcess.com is the website, and JENETTA, JENETTA at TheEpiphanyProcess.com is how you can get hold of me directly. And then as an offshoot to that, we've got World Jenny's Day, which has been platformed very powerfully through USA Global TV. This year, we have a day called World Jenny's Day, and it actually is the day my daughter Jenny passed. And we found out that it's also World Mental Health Day. So on that day, we use theatre and the arts to soften and normalize conversations around depression, suicide, and their solutions. Because when you're in your creative zone, either watching it or participating in it, that is when you normalize. That's when life becomes more lovingly manageable and heart-openingly manageable. And so every 10th of October, we have World Jenny's Day. And last year, it was platformed for 16 hours on USA Global TV, where we had a couple of A-listers and other performers from all over the world performing over 16 hours. And it was just inspirational. People are still talking about it with me and to me. And we're going to do the same again this year and have a gala evening in London that will be streamed both ways. We'll have World Jenny's Day worldwide streamed into the gala and the gala streamed worldwide. And we've got a celebrity list attending that gala. So that's the one side. I'm also on a women's prerogative, which is a panel discussion on Mondays, where 4 or 5 of us discuss all sorts of sometimes obscure things, but end up being, there it is, a women's prerogative, quite thought-provoking as well. And it's gaining a lot of traction. So if you'd like to make sure you pinpoint to watch every Monday, we're there. And then the other program or show that I'm part of with Dr. JACALYN is Global Adventures. And that's also very heart-opening. There it is again, very heart-opening show as people share their spiritual adventures around the world. We've had Ethiopia and the Coptic Church, where practically original Christianity started. In Ethiopia, we've had Antarctica, we've had the Khoisan, and in next week we have somebody who I've been mentoring. She was part of my workshops long before I lost Jenny and she lost her son, but she's been mentored with me since losing her son. And she's going to talk about her experiences in Thailand with the elephants and how her grieving process in journeying with those elephants and visiting them assisted her with her grieving. So that's next Global Adventures. And we're going to have gorillas and all sorts of things. It's not a travel show. It's an insightful journey of somebody's personal, passionate experience that has changed their lives. And once you've watched and heard them, it'll change yours.
Fabulous, Jen. And I just love that Global Adventures show and also the show with women. We have so much fun.
We do.
We really do. So I just want to highlight some of our new shows before we sign off. So we have a show called Women in Business. That's a show that I host, and that's open to any woman anywhere who wants to talk about what they're doing. We also have a show that we're bringing back again this year, Take Steps and Kick IBD. For those of you who don't know, I have ulcerative colitis for 30 some years now. And the Take Steps Walk is one of the big events that the Crohn's Colitis Foundation puts on. And Justin Merigliani, one of our team members here, he and I host this show. And we will also be broadcasting live from Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia, home of the Philadelphia Eagles. Our other new show is Children Live What They Learn, the Power of Etiquette and Manners for Children. And I am co-hosting this with Mr. Philip Sykes. We have the Sales Leader Roundtable, exploring topics about leadership and sales acumen. This is a show that I produce. It's hosted by Kenley Davenport and Jim DeBold. So that is their own show. They bring their own guests. And we also have our Creative Heart show with Dr. Madeline Chan and myself, which is a celebration of a book series that we have all about creative hearts. And our first book is the Film and Music Show. So if you would like to share your story about how you express yourself through film and music, we'd love to have you have a chapter in our book. And then also we launched this yesterday, Dementia Home Care, Balancing Care with Peace of Mind. Most of us know someone who has dementia or who has passed from dementia. It's a very difficult journey. And so Tracy Cram Perkins has survived dementia caregiving 4 times with family members, and she actually documented her journey and tons of research. I own this book, so does my sister, and she's put it into dementia home care sort of as a Bible to help all of us. It's a toolbox to help us if you are caregiving. Please do take a look and order her book. It's on Amazon. And then finally, a new show launching today. It's Your Healthy Lifestyle. This is a show that I am doing with Mr. Roland Friedel. He and I are collaborating on bringing ways that we can have a healthy lifestyle as opposed to going on a diet, trying this, trying that. It's about your lifestyle. And I told JENETTA before the show that I am now finishing my 22nd hour of intermittent fasting. I'm starting to shake a little bit. I'm super excited for 24 hours to eat. But please join us today. It's at 1 o'clock Eastern time, which is 6 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time, 7 o'clock Central European time. And we're going to be talking about supplementation. We're going to be talking about nutrition, about fitness, all of these things that we can actually incorporate into our lives. We've talked about them separately. Let's talk about a lifestyle. We're also launching on USA Global TV and Radio a private page, a membership only page for It's Your Healthy Lifestyle. So if you're interested, you can go over to our website. I'm going to share our screen very quickly so that you can see what I'm talking about. So if you go over to usaglobaltv.com and you can see our website here, there's Book Your Session, which is where you go to book all your shows. And then you can see here, Your Healthy Lifestyle. If you would like to be part of this members only, then please do give us your information here. And we're happy to welcome you into our community and share what the experience is going to be like. So that's all that I have for right now. JENETTA, anything you want to add before we close out?
Not really. I think we've encompassed a huge amount in this show in a short time. I'm amazed at what we've created today. Always such an inspiration to be with you, Dr. JACALYN, and to join all our viewers and listeners as well. And I look so forward to being with you again this time next week.
Absolutely. I look forward to it as well. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Our next show is coming up. It's the United Kingdom News and Culture with our expert correspondents from London and from Scotland, as well as Diane Floyd-Bame, who's my co-host. So please join us. We'll see you shortly. Thank you, everyone. Bye for now.